In a world that celebrates overnight success, we bring you the truth. Behind every great name is a story, a struggle, 1,000 sleepless nights. A voice that said, "Keep going," when the world screamed, "Give up." Welcome to Unbreakable Spirit, the channel that dives deep into the raw, untold journeys of legends. Not just their success, but their pain, their failures, their impossible beginnings. From childhood poverty to global impact. From being rejected dozens of times, to becoming world leaders, innovators, and icons. These are the voices of those who refuse to be broken. No music, no filters, no hype, just powerful stories, told with raw honesty, over the calming rhythm of nature. So you can feel every word. If you've ever doubted yourself, if the road ahead feels too hard, if the world said you can't, this is your home. Subscribe now to Unbreakable Spirit. Let the stories of the world's strongest souls remind you of your own power, because you too have an unbreakable spirit. In this episode, we journey through the earliest years of Jack Ma, from a modest beginning in communist China to the doorstep of his first major academic opportunity. This is a story of raw struggle, relentless effort, and unshaken vision. Jack Ma was born on September 10, 1964, in the beautiful yet historically rich city of Hangzhou, in Zhejiang Province, eastern China. It was a time of national turbulence. China was under the grip of Mao Zedong's Cultural Revolution, a time when intellectuals were persecuted, schools were disrupted, and opportunity was scarce. Jack's birth name was Ma Yun. He would not be known as Jack until years later. His hometown, Hangzhou, was not yet the high-tech hub it would become. It was a scenic city surrounded by hills and lakes, best known for its ancient temples and poetic landscapes. But beneath its beauty lay hardship. Life in communist China was not easy. Resources were limited, Western influence was almost non-existent. But this was the soil in which Jack Ma was planted. The Ma family, artists not elites. Jack came from a poor but culturally rich family. His father, Ma Leifa, was a traditional musician and storyteller, skilled in pingtan, a form of Chinese performance art involving storytelling and music using string instruments. His mother also shared in the artistic life. They weren't business people nor intellectuals in the Western sense, but they had discipline, pride, and deep cultural roots. The family did not enjoy wealth, they lived modestly. Their home was small and money was always tight. But Jack's parents instilled in him a sense of responsibility, respect, and most importantly, resilience. Growing up during the Cultural Revolution meant that Jack had no access to modern education or technology. Books were censored, the outside world was shut out, and yet, even in such an environment, Jack was curious. The curious, small, and stubborn child. Jack Ma was not born with physical strength or size. In fact, he was a small, skinny boy. Other children could easily overpower him in fights or games. But what he lacked in size, he made up for in personality. He was inquisitive. He loved asking questions. Often he would challenge things that didn't make sense to him, even if it meant upsetting teachers or elders. He had a habit of standing up and speaking when others remained silent. This made him both a target of criticism and a natural communicator. But he was not a good student in the traditional sense. His grades were poor. He struggled in math and science. He often failed tests and ranked low in class. He wasn't considered smart by teachers, but no one could deny his energy, confidence, and passion for talking. Jack would later recall, "I was never afraid of failing. What I feared was not trying." Early school years, failing, fighting, and standing out. In primary school, Jack Ma's academic results were disappointing. He wasn't naturally talented in memorization or calculation. In fact, his math scores were notoriously low, something that would haunt him for years. But where others saw a weak student, his classmates noticed something different. He was funny, bold, and creative. Jack loved storytelling. He enjoyed performing and imitating others. These early traits would later define his leadership style: expressive, dramatic, and deeply persuasive. Jack was also a fighter, literally. He got into many street fights as a young boy. Hangzhou wasn't always safe in the 1970s. Like many kids in his neighborhood, Jack had to stand up for himself. And despite his small size, he didn't back down easily. He learned early that confidence can beat strength, and that reputation can sometimes be more powerful than fists. Opening to the outside world. In the late 1970s, after Mao Zedong's death, China began to open up. Western culture started to drip into cities like Hangzhou. One major sign of change was the construction of the Hangzhou Hotel, which welcomed foreign tourists, a rare sight at the time. Teenage Jack saw an opportunity. He began riding his bicycle every morning for 40 minutes to the hotel. There, he offered free guided tours to English-speaking foreigners. He wasn't paid. What he wanted was practice, to improve his English. For 9 years straight, he repeated this daily routine, rain or shine. He asked visitors to correct his grammar, teach him slang, explain jokes. In return, he showed them the Westlake temples and tea shops of Hangzhou. This experience changed Jack's worldview. One American family in particular became close to him. They admired his ambition and spirit. They were the ones who gave him the nickname Jack. They felt Ma Yun was hard to pronounce. From that moment on, Jack Ma was born. Jack's dream was to go to university, but getting into college in China required passing the National College Entrance Exam, known as the Gaokao. It was, and still is, one of the most difficult exams in the world. Jack failed the exam twice. Each failure was crushing, especially because his weakest subject was math, the very subject that made up a large portion of the Gaokao. But Jack didn't give up. He studied harder. He tried again. On his third attempt in the early 1980s, Jack finally passed, barely. His math score was low, but his English score was exceptional, which saved him. He was accepted to Hangzhou Teachers Institute, which would later be known as Hangzhou Normal University. He majored in English and became one of the most active students on campus. After graduating from Hangzhou Teachers Institute in 1988, Jack Ma became a lecturer in English and international trade at the local university. It wasn't a glamorous job. In fact, his monthly salary was just around $12. But he didn't complain. He loved teaching. He loved English. And he loved learning about the world beyond China's borders. A world he had never seen, but deeply longed to understand. At that time, Jack Ma had no money, no connections, no powerful family background. Nothing that the world normally associates with success. But what he had was a vision, a relentless curiosity, and a spirit that simply would not break. In the early 1990s, Jack Ma started his first venture, a small translation agency called Hope Translation. It wasn't easy. Most people didn't need translation services, and even fewer trusted a young man with wild dreams and a thick accent. Jack Ma tried many ideas. He even attempted to start a business that made gloves for construction companies. That failed. He was mocked, rejected, told to give up and get a real job. But he refused. In 1995, Jack Ma traveled to the United States as a translator for a trade delegation. There, in Seattle, he was introduced to the internet for the first time. He searched for the word beer and found pages about American beer, German beer, but no Chinese beer. Something clicked. This is going to change everything, he thought. He returned to China, obsessed with the internet. He tried to create a website for Chinese businesses. He called it China Pages. It was one of the first internet companies in China, but it failed. The Chinese government didn't understand the internet. Investors didn't see the point. Even his friends and family called him crazy. The internet is a fad, they said. No one will buy things online. But Jack Ma saw what they couldn't. He saw a future no one else was willing to believe in. In 1999, with 17 friends in his apartment, Jack Ma launched a new company, Alibaba. They didn't have money. They didn't have fancy offices. They didn't even have reliable internet. But they had belief. Jack told his team, "We will make it, not because we are smarter, but because we are more determined. We will work day and night. We will serve small businesses. We will build the future of e-commerce in China." And that's what they did. The early years of Alibaba were brutal. Jack was rejected by Silicon Valley investors. He was told Alibaba would never compete with giants like eBay. Some even laughed in his face, but Jack never gave up. He took every rejection as fuel, every failure as a lesson, every doubt as motivation. And slowly, Alibaba grew. By 2003, Alibaba launched Taobao, an online shopping platform. When eBay tried to take over the Chinese market, Jack responded with grit. He said, "eBay is a shark in the ocean. We are a crocodile in the Yangtze River. If we fight in the river, we will win," and he was right. Within a few years, Alibaba became the dominant e-commerce platform in China. In 2014, Alibaba went public on the New York Stock Exchange in what was then the largest IPO in history, raising $25 billion. Jack Ma, the man who was rejected from 30 jobs, including KFC, the man who failed university entrance exams twice, had now become the richest man in China. But he never forgot who he was. He still wore simple clothes. He still believed in teaching. He once said, "If you want to be successful, learn from the mistakes of others, not just from success stories." Jack Ma's story is not just about business. It's a story of vision, resilience, self-discipline, and the power of never giving up. He was told no again and again, but he kept saying yes to his dreams. He had no money, no connections, just a fire inside him and an unbreakable spirit. So what's stopping you? Whatever your background, whatever your current struggle, remember this: success is not about being the smartest. It's about being the most determined. If Jack Ma's story inspired you, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to Unbreakable Spirit for more powerful stories like this. Like this video if you believe in your own dreams, share it with someone who needs motivation today, and drop a comment. What's your dream? What are you fighting for? Because here on Unbreakable Spirit we believe your story is just beginning.